Welcome to Silent Night Archives, a calm journey through history for sleep and relaxation. Tonight's journey is different. This is the story of a man named Thomas, a modern man who finds himself sent back in time to medieval Europe, a world far removed from everything he has ever known. There are no electric lights, no hospitals, no running water, no safety nets, only mud roads, wooden cottages, open fires, rigid social hierarchies, and a life balanced constantly on the edge of survival. Through Thomas, we experience the medieval world not as distant history, but as immediate reality. He remembers comfort, medicine, clean water, and social equality. Yet he must now navigate a society shaped by feudal order, limited knowledge, and constant vulnerability. This is not a story of knights and glory. It is a quiet exploration of what daily life might truly have felt like for an ordinary person. Someone without power, without protection, and without certainty of tomorrow. As Thomas moves through each day, he encounters the real historical dangers of the time. Untreated infections, contaminated water, malnutrition, harsh winters, social punishment, and the ever-present threat of disease. You will walk beside him through narrow village paths, feel the smoke-filled air of small cottages, sense the weight of exhaustion after physical labor, and understand how fragile life once was. The tone of this story is slow, reflective, and immersive, designed to help your body relax while your imagination gently explores the past. There is tension, but it unfolds quietly. There is danger, but it is woven naturally into daily life. Above all, this is a journey into vulnerability, resilience, and the human ability to endure, even in the most uncertain circumstances. So lower the lights, settle into a comfortable position, and allow yourself to drift into another century. If you enjoy calm historical storytelling that helps you unwind and fall asleep, consider subscribing to Silent Night Archives. There are many more journeys waiting for you, each one exploring a different time, a different life, and a different quiet story from history. Thank you for being here tonight. Now, let us begin Thomas's journey into the past. You awaken to a cold that feels older than anything you have known, a cold that seems to rise from the earth itself, seeping through the rough fabric beneath your body and settling into your bones. And for a long moment you do not move, lying there in a haze of confusion, your mind drifting between fragments of memory and the strange heaviness of the present. The air around you, thick with the scent of damp soil and faint wood smoke, a scent that feels both familiar and unsettling, as though it belongs to a world you have only read about. Your name is Thomas, a simple name, one you have carried through the routines of modern life, through mornings shaped by warm showers and soft mattresses, through evenings lit by electric lamps and screens that glow with effortless brightness. Yet here, as you slowly open your eyes, none of those comforts greet you. Instead, you find yourself staring up at a pale sky veiled by drifting mist, the light soft and muted, lacking the crisp clarity of artificial illumination, and you feel the uneven ground pressing into your back, the soil cool and gritty, scattered with small stones that dig gently into your skin through the coarse wool garment wrapped around you. You shift slightly, and the roughness of the wool scratches against your neck. The fibers thick and uneven, nothing like the smooth cotton or synthetic fabrics you are used to. And as you lift a hand to touch the garment, you feel how heavy it is, how crudely woven, how it carries the faint smell of smoke and sweat, as though it has been worn by someone who lived close to fire and earth, someone who labored outdoors rather than sitting in climate-controlled rooms. And the realization sends a quiet ripple of unease through you. You sit up slowly, your muscles stiff from the cold ground, and as you know, the world around you comes into clearer focus, revealing a small patch of open land bordered by trees, their branches bare, or nearly so, their bark darkened by moisture. The air carrying the scent of mud, wet leaves, and distant hearth fires. And somewhere beyond the trees you hear the faint bleating of goats or sheep, the clatter of wooden buckets, and the murmur of voices speaking in accents that feel strangely old. The vowels stretched in unfamiliar ways, the rhythm slower and heavier than the speech, you know. You blink several times, trying to steady your breath, and your mind reaches instinctively for explanations for the familiar logic of modern life. Perhaps you fell, perhaps you fainted, perhaps you are dreaming. Yet none of these thoughts settle comfortably, because everything around you feels too real, too textured, too cold. The air itself carrying a weight that modern air never seems to have, a heaviness born of smoke, dampness, and the absence of anything filtered or purified. You run your fingers through your hair, feeling the chill of the morning cling to your scalp. And as you look down at yourself, you notice the clothing you wear. A tunic of coarse wool, unevenly dyed, the color a muted brownish gray. The sleeves loose and slightly frayed, the fabric thick but not warm enough to shield you from the cold. And beneath it, you feel a simple linen shirt, rougher than any fabric you would willingly choose. It seems stiff, its texture almost abrasive against your skin. And you cannot help but think of the soft shirts folded neatly in your dresser at home, the ones washed with scented detergent, the ones that never scratched or irritated. You take a slow breath, the air cool and slightly smoky, and you realize how different it tastes, carrying the faint bitterness of burning wood and the earthy scent of livestock. Nothing like the clean, filtered air of modern buildings. Nothing like the crisp breeze that flows through city streets after rain. And as you exhale, you feel a quiet tremor of uncertainty, a sense that you have been placed somewhere far from anything you understand. You rise unsteadily to your feet, the ground uneven beneath you, the soil soft in some places and firm in others. And as you stand, you notice how your legs feel stiff and slightly numb from the cold. And you think of the warmth of your bed, the softness of your mattress, the way it supported your body without pressure or discomfort. And the contrast feels almost overwhelming, as though you have been torn from one world and dropped into another without warning. You take a few tentative steps toward the sound of voices, your feet sinking slightly into the damp earth. And as you move, the wool tunic shifts around your body, its weight unfamiliar, its texture coarse, and you feel the chill of the morning air slip beneath its edges, brushing against your skin, reminding you again that you are exposed, vulnerable, and far from the insulated comfort of modern clothing. Through the trees, you begin to see theatlines of small wooden structures, their walls made of rough timber, their roofs thatched with straw, smoke rising from a few chimneys in thin, wavering trails. And the sight feels like something from a museum exhibit or a historical reenactment. Yet here it is real, tangible, lived in, the wood darkened by years of weather, the thatch uneven and patched in places, the ground around the buildings muddy and worn by countless footsteps. As you approach the edge of the village, a few figures come into view, men and women dressed in garments similar to your own, though theirs appear more worn, more lived in, their hands rough and reddened by labor, their faces lined not by age alone, but by the strain of daily survival. And they pause in their tasks to look at you, their expression sagacious, their eyes sharp with suspicion, as though strangers are rare and rarely welcome. One woman, carrying a wooden bucket, narrows her eyes slightly as she studies you, her posture tense, her grip firm, and you feel a quiet unease settle into your chest, the awareness that you don't belong here, that your presence is unexpected, perhaps even threatening in a world where every resource is precious and every outsider a potential danger. A man steps forward, his clothing simple but sturdy, his hands calloused, his gaze steady, and he speaks to you in a slow, measured tone. the words familiar yet strangely shaped, the accent thick, the consonants softened. And though you understand the general meaning, you struggle to follow the nuances. The rhythm of his speech unlike anything Yahave heard in modern life. He asks who you are, where you come from, why you are here. And you find yourself unable to answer, not because you don't wish to, but because you do not know. Your mind still clouded with confusion, your memories fragmented, and as you try to speak your voice feels thin, uncertain, the words catching in your throat. The villagers exchange glances, their suspicion deepening, and you sense how precarious your situation is. How easily misunderstanding could turn into rejection or worse. Yet there is no hostility in their eyes, only caution. The kind born of a life where survival depends on vigilance, where illness, hunger, and hardship are constant companions. The man gestures for you to follow him, and though you hesitate, you sense that refusing would only increase their suspicion. So you walk behind him, your steps slow, your breath steadying as you move deeper into the village, the ground muddy beneath your feet, the air filled with the scent of smoke, livestock, and damp straw. He leads you to a small open area where a few villagers gather, their expressions curious but guarded. And you stand there, feeling the weight off their gaze, the heaviness of the air, the roughness of your clothing. And you cannot help but think of the world you left behind. The ease of turning on a tap to drink clean water, the convenience of buying food from a supermarket stocked with endless choices, the security of hospitals with trained doctors and sterile equipment. And the contrast feels almost unbearable. Here, water must be drawn from a well, its surface often muddy, its taste earthy, and you imagine the effort required to carry it. The strain on the arms, the cold seeping into the hands, and you realize how much you have taken for granted. Here, food is uncertain, dependent on harvests, weather, and the labor of many hands, and you think of the aisles of packaged goods, the refrigerator shone softly, the endless supply of fresh produce, and you feel a quiet itch in your chest. Here, illness is feared, not managed, treated with herbs and prayers rather than medicine and machines. And you imagine the vulnerability of a fever, the danger of a simple wound, the fragility of life without antibiotics or sterile tools. The villagers speak among themselves, their voices low, their expressions thoughtful. And though you cannot understand every word, you sense that they are deciding what to do with you, how to place you within their world, and you feel the weight of their judgment, the awareness that your survival may depend on their willingness to accept you. A woman steps forward, her face lined but kind, her clothing patched but clean, and she studies you with a mixture of caution and curiosity. Then she gestures for you to follow her, and though you do not know what awaits, you sense that this is the closest thing to safety you will find on this first day. She leads you to a small wooden structure, its interior dimly lit by a single fire, the flames flickering softly, casting warm but uneven light across the room. And as you step inside, you feel the contrast between this faint firelight and the bright, steady glow of electric bulbs, the shadows dancing across the walls, the air thick with smoke, the warmth uneven and fragile. She offers you a place near the fire, and you sit slowly, feeling thorough wooden floor beneath you, the heat of the flames warming your hands, but not quite reaching your back. And you realize how different this is from the steady, enveloping warmth of modern heating, how every comfort here is partial, inconsistent, depending on labor and fuel. She speaks to you gently, her voice soft, her accent thick, and though you understand only fragments, you sense that she is asking whether you are hungry, and your stomach tightens at the thought, the hunger you have been ignoring now rising to the surface, and you nod, feeling a quiet vulnerability. She hands you a small wooden bowl filled with something warm, perhaps a simple porridge, its texture coarse, its flavor earthy. And as you eat slowly, you think of the endless variety of modern food. The spices, the textures, the convenience. And the contrast feels almost surreal. As the day unfolds, you are shown small tasks. Simple chores expected of Fanyan who wishes to remain. Carrying water, gathering wood, sweeping Thefler. And though none of these tasks are difficult on their own, you feel the strain of them, the cold air biting at your hands, the weight of the water pulling at your arms, the rough handle of the broom rubbing against your skin. And you realize how soft your life has been, how unprepared your body is for this world. The villagers watch you, their expressions unreadable, their eyes sharp, and you sense that they are measuring you, assessing your usefulness, your willingness to work, your ability to endure. And you understand, slowly and quietly, that survival here is not guaranteed by birth or circumstance, but by effort, obedience, and resilience. As the light fades and the sky darkens, the village settles into a quiet rhythm. The sounds of animals softening, the voices fading, the firelight flickering gently, and you sit near the hearth, wrapped in the coarse wool garment, feeling the weight of the day settle into your bones, the uncertainty of tomorrow lingering in your thoughts. You think of your bed, your home, your world, and the distance between that life and this one feels immeasurable. Yet here you are, breathing the smoky air, feeling the rough fabric against your skin, listening to the quiet crackle of fire. And you understand, with a slow, heavy clarity, that this is only the beginning, that the days ahead will be hard, that comfort will vary, that survival will require strength you are not sure you possess. Yet for now, on this first day, you simply breathe, letting the warmth of the fire touch your hands, letting the weight of the wool settle around your shoulders, letting the quiet of the village lull your thoughts into stillness. And as your eyes grow heavy, you surrender to the slow rhythm of this unfamiliar world, knowing that tomorrow will bring new challenges, new uncertainties, and new demands. But for now, you rest, wrapped in the fragile warmth of a fire that flickers softly in the darkness. The first day of your new life drawing to a quiet, uncertain close. The second day begins not with the gentle comfort of waking, but with a slow, creeping awareness of cold, a cold that has settled into your bones during the night, a cold that feels older than anything you have ever known. And as you drift upward from uneasy sleep, you feel the stiffness in your limbs, the ache in your back from lying on a bed that is not truly a bed at all, only a thin layer of straw spread unevenly across rough wooden planks, the straw shifting beneath you, scratching your skin through the coarse wool blanket that barely holds the night air at bay. You open your eyes to a dim, smoky half-light, the faint glow of embers in the hearth, casting a soft orange shimmer across the room, the air thick with the lingering scent of burnt wood, damp wool, and the faint sourness of old smoke that has seeped into every surface. And you breathe slowly, feeling the heaviness of the air settle into your lungs. Nothing like the clean, filtered air of modern buildings. Nothing like the effortless warmth of central heating. Only the raw, unrefined atmosphere of a world where fire is the only source of light and heat. Your stomach tightens with hunger, a deep, hollow ache that feels sharper than yesterday. And you realize how little you ate, how thin the broth was, how quickly your body burned through its warmth. And you think of the ease of opening a refrigerator, of choosing food without effort, of eating until you were full. And the contrast feels almost cruel, as though you have been stripped of every comfort you once took for granted. You sit up slowly, the wool garment heavy on your shoulders, its fibers stiff and uneven, the seams rubbing against your skin, and you feel the cold air slip beneath its edges, brushing against your chest and arms, reminding you again that warmth here is not a given, but something earned through labor and fuel, something fragile and temporary, something that fades the moment the fire dies. The woman who sheltered you the night before enters quietly, her expression calm but tired, her hair tied back with a simple strip of cloth, her hands already reddened from morning chores. And she gestures for you to rise, her voice soft but firm. And though you do not understand every word, you understand enough. The day has begun, and you must work. You step outside into the cold morning air, the sky a pale gray, the ground muddy from the night's moisture, the village already alive with movement. Men carrying tools, women tending to fires, children gathering kindling. And you feel the weight of their glances, the quiet suspicion, the unspoken expectation that you must prove yourself, that you must show you are not a burden, that you must earn your place in a world where every pair of hands matters. A man approaches you, the same one who questioned you the day before. His expression stern but not unkind, and he hands you a wooden bucket. Its handle rough, its weight surprising, and he gestures toward the well at the far end of the village. And you understand? You must fetch water. You walk toward the well, the mud clinging to your feet, the cold air biting at your hands, and as you reach the stone structure, you feel the chill of the water rising from below. The rope rough against your palms as you lower the bucket, the muscles in your arms straining as you pull it back up, the weight of the water far heavier than you expected. And you think of turning on a tap, of clean water flowing effortlessly, of never having to think about the labor behind it. And the contrast feels almost overwhelming. You carry the bucket back, the water sloshing, the weight pulling at your shoulders, and by the time you reach the small house, your arms ache, your breath unsteady, and you realize how unprepared your body is for this world, how every task demands strength, endurance, and resilience, qualities that modern life rarely requires. The villagers continue their work with quiet efficiency, their movements practiced, their bodies hardened by years of labor, and you watch them with a mixture of admiration and unease, noticing the calluses on their hands, the weariness in their eyes, the way they accept discomfort as a natural part of life, and you feel a quiet shame settle into your chest, the awareness that you have lived a life of ease compared to theirs. You are given more tasks as the morning unfolds, gathering wood from the edge of the forest, sweeping the muddy ground near the entrance of the house, helping repair a loose section of the thatched roof. Each task simple in concept but demanding in execution, each one reminding you of how soft your muscles are, how unused you are to physical strain, how quickly your breath grows short. As you work, you observe the villagers more closely, their clothing made of rough wool and linen, patched and worn, their boots stiff and cracked, their posture shaped by years of bending, lifting, carrying, their faces lined not only by age, but by weather, by hunger, by the constant strain of survival. And you think of modern clothing, soft fabrics, cushioned shoes, garments designed for comfort rather than necessity, and the difference feels immense. You notice the way the villagers speak to one another, their voices low, their accents thick, their words shaped by a rhythm that feels older than anything you have heard. And though you understand only fragments, you sense the hierarchy in their interactions, the quiet deference shown to certain individuals, the unspoken rules that govern their behavior. And you realize that survival here is not only physical but social, that one wrong gesture, one sign of disrespect, could place you in danger. You think of modern society, of laws and protections, of the ability to speak freely without fear of punishment, and the contrast feels stark, as though you have stepped into a world where every action carries weight, where every mistake has consequences, where comfort is earned through labor rather than assumed by right. Hunger follows you throughout the day, a constant dull ache that never fully fades. And when a small meal is finally offered, piece of coarse bread and a thin broth, you eat slowly, savoring every bite despite the blandness. And you think of the endless choices of modern food, the spices, the textures, the convenience. And the memory feels almost painful, as though you are remembering a luxury you may never experience again. You watch the villagers eat, their portions small, their movements efficient, their expressions resigned, and you realize that food here is not pleasure but necessity, not abundance but survival, and you feel a quiet fear settle into your thoughts. The awareness that hunger will be a constant companion in this world. As the afternoon deepens, you are sent to help mend a fence near the edge of the village. The wood rough beneath your hands, the cold air numbing your fingers, and you think of modern tools. Smooth handles, precise measurements, electric drills, and the contrast feels almost absurd, as though you have been transported into a world where every task requires twice the effort for half the result. You pause for a moment, looking out across the fields, the land stretching in uneven patches of brown and green, the soil damp, the air heavy with the scent of earth and livestock. And you think of modern agriculture, machines plowing fields in neat lines, irrigation systems delivering water with precision, fertilizers ensuring growth, and you realize how fragile life is here, how dependent it is on weather, on luck, on the strength of human hands. As evening approaches, the cold deepens, the sky darkens, and the villagers retreat into their homes, their movements slower now, their bodies tired from the day's work. And you feel the exhaustion settle into your own limbs, a heaviness that makes each step feel deliberate, each breath slow. You return to the small wooden house, the fire burning low, the air thick with smoke, and you sit near the hearth, your hands stretched toward the warmth, your stomach still aching with hunger, your body sore from labor. And you think of the softness of your old bed, the warmth of central heating, the ease of turning on a light, and the memories feel distant, almost dreamlike, as though they belong to someone else. The woman speaks to you again, her voice gentle, her expression softened by the firelight, and though you understand only fragments, you sense that she is telling you that tomorrow will be harder, that more work awaits, that this is only the beginning. And you nod slowly, accepting the truth of her words. As night settles fully over the village, you lie down on the rough wooden surface once more, the straw shifting beneath you, the wool blanket heavy and scratchy, the cold air seeping through the cracks in the walls, and you close your eyes, your body aching, your mind heavy with the weight of the day. You breathe slowly, letting the exhaustion pull you toward sleep. And you understand, with a quiet, heavy clarity, that this world will not bend to your needs, that survival here will require strength you do not yet possess, that hunger, cold, and labor will shape your days, and that each morning will bring new challenges. Yet as you drift into sleep, you feel a faint spark of determination, a quiet resolve forming beneath the exhaustion, the awareness that you must adapt, that you must learn, that you must endure. For there is no path back to the world you once knew, only the long, uncertain road ahead. The third day begins with a heaviness that feels different from the days before, a heaviness not only of the body, but of the mind, as though the reality of this world has finally settled into your bones. And when you awaken, you feel the stiffness in your joints, the dull ache in your back, the soreness in your arms from carrying water and wood. And you lie still for a long moment, listening to the faint crackle of the dying fire, the soft breathing of the woman who sleeps nearby, the distant sounds of the village beginning its morning rhythm. And you realize that your body is already changing, already responding to the demands placed upon it. The air is cold, colder than the day before, and as you sit up the wool blanket slips from your shoulders, the chill brushing against your skin, like a reminder that warmth is never guaranteed here, only borrowed from fire and labor, and you pull the coarse garment around yourself, feeling the ruffabers scratch your neck, the uneven seams pressing against your arms. And you think of the softness of modern clothing, the smoothness of cotton, the warmth of fleece, the ease of slipping into something comfortable, and the contrast feels almost painful. Your stomach growls, a deep, hollow ache that has become familiar. And you realize how little you have eaten, how thin the meals are, how quickly your body burns through the small portions. And you think of modern breakfasts, of cereal and fruit and warm bread, of coffee and tea, of the abundance that Hans has surrounded you without effort. And the memory feels distant, almost unreal, as though it belongs to someone else. The woman rises and stirs the embers of the fire, adding a few small pieces of wood. Her movements slow but practiced, her face lined with fatigue, and she prepares a simple morning meal, a thin porridge made from grains that have been ground by hand. The texture coarse, the flavor mild, and she hands you a small wooden bowl. Her expression unreadable, and you eat slowly, savoring each bite despite the blandness, knowing that this may be the only food you receive for many hours. As you eat, you notice the way your body reacts, the way the warmth of porridge spreads through your chest, the way your stomach quiets but does not feel full, the way your hands tremble slightly from hunger and fatigue. And you understand, with a quiet heaviness, that diet here is not about pleasure or choice, but survival, that every meal is a calculation, a balance between what is available and what must be saved. When you step outside, the village is already alive with movement, fear-filled with the scent of smoke, damp earth, and livestock. And you see villagers beginning their tasks, their faces serious, their bodies already bent to the rhythm of labor, and you feel the weight of their expectations, the unspoken rule that everyone must contribute, that idleness is not tolerated, that survival depends on the strength of the community. A man approaches you, one of the older villagers, his beard gray, his shins thick with calluses, and he studies you with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism, then gestures for you to follow him. And though you do not understand his words, you understand his intent. He is taking you to work. He leads you to a small field at the edge of the village, the soil dark and damp, the air heavy with the scent of earth. And he hands you a simple wooden tool, its handle worn smooth by years of use, its weight uneven, and he shows you how to break the soil, how to loosen the ground for planting, his movements slow and deliberate, his posture shaped by decades of labor, and you mimic him as best you can, your muscles straining, your breath growing short, the cold air burning your lungs as you work. You notice the villagers around you, their bodies strong despite their thinness, their movements efficient, their faces marked by sun and wind. And you realize how different their health is from modern health, how their strength comes not from exercise or training, but from necessity, from daily labor, from a life lived outdoors. And you think of modern gyms, of treadmills and weights, of controlled environments and scheduled workouts, and the contrast feels almost absurd. You feel sweat forming on your forehead despite the cold, your hands growing sore from gripping the wooden handle, your back aching from bending over the soil. And you think of modern medicine, of painkillers and physiotherapy, of doctors and hospitals, and you realize how fragile the human body is without those supports, how easily injury could become disaster here, how a simple cut could become infected, how a fever could become deadly as the morning stretches on. The hunger returns sharper now, cutting through your concentration, and you pause for a moment, wiping your hands on your tunic, feeling the roughness of the fabric, the stiffness of dried mud on your sleeves, and you watch the villagers continue their work without complaint, their faces calm, their movements steady. And you understand that hunger is a constant companion here, something endured rather than solved, something woven into the rhythm of daily life, when the midday meal finally comes. It is small, a piece of bread, a few cooked vegetables, a thin broth, and you eat slowly, your body grateful for the warmth, your mind aware of how little it is, and you think of modern meals, of variety and abundance, of spices and flavors, of the ease of eating whenever her struck, and the memory feels almost luxurious. After the meal, you are sent to help with another task, carrying bundles of firewood from the forest to the village, the weight heavy on your shoulders, the cold air biting at your face. And as you walk, you observe the social life of the villagers, the way they speak to one another, the way they share small jokes, the way they exchange glances that carry meaning you cannot decipher. And you feel the distance between yourself and them, a gap created by language, by culture, by time. You notice how the villagers treat one another, the quiet respect shown to the elders, the deference given to those who own more land or livestock, the way children are expected to work alongside adults, the way women and men divide their tasks without question. And you think of modern social structures, of equality and choice, of personal freedom. And the contrast feels heavy, as though you have stepped into a world where every role is predetermined, where every person knows their place. As the afternoon deepens, you feel your strength fading, your legs trembling, your arms aching, and you pause for a moment, leaning against a tree, breathing slowly, and you think of modern health, of vitamins and supplements, of clean water and sanitation, of the ability to rest when tired. And you realize how fragile your body feels here, how unprepared it is for thiedmans of this world. When you return to the village, the sun is beginning to set, the sky turning a soft orange, the air growing colder, and the villagers gather near the central fire, their faces illuminated by the flickering light, their voice low, their expressions tired but calm. And you sit among them, feeling the warmth of the fire on your hands, the cold air on your back, the hunger still lingering in your stomach. And you listen to their conversations, the rhythm of their speech soothing. Despite your inability to understand, you observe the way they interact, the way they share small pieces of food, the way they laugh quietly, the way they comfort a child who has scraped a knee. And you feel a quiet ache in your chest, the awareness that despite the hardship, despite the hunger and the cold, there is a sense of community here, a sense of belonging that you do not yet share. As night settles fully over the village, you return to the small wooden house, the fire burning low, the air thick with smoke, and you lie down on thorough wooden surface once more, the straw shifting beneath you, the wool blanket heavy and scratchy, and you close your eyes, your body aching, your mind heavy with the weight of the day. You breathe slowly, letting the exhaustion pull you toward sleep, and you understand, with a quiet, heavy clarity, that this world will not grow us here, that each day will demand more from you, that your health, your strength, your endurance will be tested again and again, and that survival here will require not only physical effort, but emotional resilience. Yet as you drift into sleep, you feel a faint spark of determination, acute resolve forming beneath the exhaustion, the awareness that you are beginning to understand this world, that you are beginning to see its rhythms, its rules, its hardships, and that perhaps, with time, you may find a place within it. Thomas wakes before dawn with a sensation he cannot immediately name. Not pain exactly, not fear, but a deep internal wrongness, as if something beneath his skin has shifted during the night. The air inside the cottage thick with the smell of smoke, damp wool, and unwashed bodies, the low ceiling trapping yesterday's fire in a gray haze that never fully leaves. And his throat burns when he swallows, dry and raw. He turns his head slowly, noticing the ache in his neck, the heaviness behind his eyes, the strange warmth spreading through his chest. And he knows from modern memory what this might be. The early rise of fever, the immune system beginning its silent war. But here there is no thermometer, no tablets, no clear understanding of bacteria or viruses. Only superstition, prayer, and endurance. When he tries to sit up, his muscles resist, weak in a way that feels disproportionate to the labor of yesterday. And as he lifts his hand, he sees again the small cut in his palm from the fence post, barely a finger's width long. Something that in his previous life would have healed unnoticed, yet now it is swollen. The skin around it tight and red, slightly shiny, the warmth radiating outward like a warning. In medieval Europe, infections were among the most common causes of death. Even minor wounds could become fatal when bacteria entered the bloodstream, leading to what modern medicine calls sepsis, a systemic response where the body attacks itself in confusion. Fever climbing, organs failing slowly, consciousness fading not in violence, but in exhaustion. By mid-morning, Thomas begins to shiver despite the growing heat beneath his skin, sweat forming across his forehead while his fingers feel cold, his thoughts slowing as though wrapped in cloth, and when he stands the room tilts slightly, the packed earth floor seeming unstable beneath his bare feet. No one in the cottage reacts with alarm. Illness is common, expected, woven into life. Children cough constantly, elders breathe shallowly, wounds fester, and many simply do not wake one morning. Death is not dramatic here. It is frequent and familiar. As the hours pass, the fever intensifies, his heartbeat louder in his ears, his vision occasionally blurring at the edges, and he becomes aware of how little separates strength from collapse in this era, how thin the line truly is. He lies down on the straw mattress, the rough fibers scratching against his skin, and memories of modern hospitals drift through his mind. Sterile white walls, intravenous fluids, antibiotics, clean bandages, none of which exist here. And the realization settles heavily in him that survival in this time often depended more on luck than resilience. By late afternoon, confusion begins, a symptom common in severe infection. His thoughts fragmenting, names slipping from memory, the faces around him appearing distant and distorted. And he hears murmurs about imbalance of humors, about hot and cold energies within the body. Medieval medical theories still grounded in ancient Greek philosophy rather than microbial science. The wound in his hand throbs rhythmically, a dull pulse that matches his racing heart. And as the fever peaks, his body begins to tremble uncontrollably, muscles contracting in waves, dehydration setting in as sweat drains his limited reserves. Without fluids, without antimicrobial treatment, the infection spreads silently, bacteria entering the bloodstream, inflammatory chemicals flooding his system, blood pressure dropping gradually, organs receiving less oxygen. He feels himself slipping, not in panic, but in strange detachment, as though the world is receding gently, the sound of crackling fire becoming distant, the weight of his body fading, and his breathing grows shallow, uneven until it stops altogether. Darkness arrives softly, and yet he wakes again. The same dawn light filtering through cracks in the wooden wall, the same smoke lingering in the air. The wound on his paw once more fresh and minor, not swollen, not inflamed, as though the previous suffering had been erased from the physical world, yet not from his memory. He sits upright immediately this time, shaken, understanding now that death here is not hypothetical. It is immediate, ordinary, unavoidable. The day continues regardless of his internal knowledge. Work must be done, grain must be ground, water must be drawn, animals must be tended. And survival does not pause for existential reflection. Later that morning, he accompanies another villager to the fields. The soil damp from recent rain, tools heavy and primitive, iron tips worn thin from repeated use. And as he works, he notices the blister forming on his heel from ill-fitting leather shoes, small friction against skin. Another minor injury with potentially fatal consequence in a world without antiseptic care. By midday, hunger gnaws at him. The diet here limited largely to coarse bread, thin pottage, occasional vegetables. Protein rare and often reserved for those of higher status. Malnutrition common among peasants. Weakening immune systems and making recovery from illness less likely. He drinks from a shared wooden bucket passed between laborers, unaware of how easily contamination spreads in such conditions. Human and animal waste, often seeping into wells. No understanding of invisible pathogens. Only vague associations between bad smells and sickness. By afternoon, cramps begin his abdomen, subtle at first, tightening muscles deep within his gut, and over the next hours the pain sharpens, accompanied by weakness and dizziness, symptoms consistent with dysentery, one of the most common and deadly gastrointestinal diseases of the medieval period. Dysentery, caused by bacterial or parasitic infection, leads to severe diarrhea, dehydration, electrolyte imbalance, and in severe cases shock, particularly dangerous in populations already weakened by hunger. Thomas feels his strength draining rapidly, legs trembling, vision narrowing, and by evening he can barely stand. Collapsing against the side of the cottage, sweat cold against his skin now, lips dry and cracked, without rehydration therapy, without understanding of germ theory. Such illness could claim a life within days, sometimes within hours in extreme cases, and Thomas's breathing grows shallow once more. Body unable to compensate for fluid loss, blood pressure falling, consciousness fading into quiet absence. Again darkness comes, again he wakes. This time back at the field before the cramps began, the bucket still in his hand, the others speaking casually. Unaware of how close he had come to death in a different version of the day. Fear settles deeper within him now, not sharp but heavy. The awareness that nearly every aspect of daily life contains lethal possibility, water, wounds, weather, hierarchy. As the afternoon stretches on, he makes a social mistake, subtle yet dangerous. He laughs at the wrong moment when a traveling merchant recounts a story involving a minor noble. His laughter interpreted not as humor but as mockery. And in rigid feudal societies, perceived disrespect toward authority could result in punishment, ranging from fines to physical beating. He is seized roughly, pushed to his knees, struck across the face, not out of cruelty alone, but as reinforcement of social order, and one blow lands harder than intended. His head snapping back against the wooden cart behind him, skull meeting unforgiving timber. Head trauma in the medieval period often proved fatal due to lack of surgical intervention. Internal bleeding invisible and untreatable. Swelling within the skull, compressing the brain gradually until consciousness ceased. Thomas feels the world dim around the edges once more. Nausea rising, vision doubling, sound fading into a low hum. And within hours, he slips into coma. Breath shallow, pulse irregular, until it stops entirely. Darkness again, and again awakening. He gasps as though surfacing from deep water, standing once more before the merchant. The laugh still unspoken this time, and he lowers his gaze quickly, understanding now that survival here requires not only physical endurance, but strict adherence to invisible social codes. As evening approaches, a new threat emerges, cold. The damp chill that settles after sunset in poorly insulated cottages. Pneumonia, a common killer in medieval Europe, especially among those weakened by previous illness. He imagines how easily a simple cough could become fatal, how infection in the lungs would fill airways with fluid, cause fever, chest pain, difficulty breathing. And without antibiotics, mortality rates were high, particularly during harsh winters. The awareness of these possibilities, presses on him as heavily as the cold air itself. And he sits near the hearth, watching sparks rise into the smoke-filled ceiling, reflecting on how many in this era would not survive childhood, how infant mortality often exceeded 30% in some regions, how childbirth itself was one of the leading causes of death for women, hemorrhage and infection common. He thinks of plague as well, the Black Death that would later sweep across Europe, caused by Yersinia pestis carried by fleas on rats, leading to bubonic swellings, fever, delirium, and mortality rates that in some areas reached 50% or higher. Entire villages erased within months, though plague has not yet arrived in his timeline. The knowledge that such devastation was possible deepens his understanding of medieval fragility. By the end of the fourth day, Thomas no longer sees death as an interruption, but as a constant companion, walking beside every peasant, every child, every laborer. Invisible yet present in water, wounds, hierarchy, hunger, cold and chance, he remains alive, restored again by the strange mechanism that returns him each time, but psychologically altered, layered with the memory of multiple endings. Aware that what modern life treats as minor inconvenience could here become irreversible fate. As the fire burns low and the cottage grows quiet, he stares into the embers and understands something final about this era. Survival was never guaranteed. Not by youth, not by strength, not by intention. And the true weight of medieval existence was not constant warfare, but constant vulnerability. A life lived always one accident, one infection, one misunderstanding away from silence. And still the morning will come again, and he will rise once more, carrying every remembered death within him as he steps into another uncertain day. The fifth day begins with a heaviness that feels older than your memories, a heaviness that settles across your chest like a damp wool cloak. And when you open your eyes, the world appears through a soft haze, the dim morning light filtering through the cracks in the wooden walls, carrying with it a scent of smoke, damp straw, and the faint bitterness of the fever that clung to you through the long hours of the night. And you lie still for a long moment, unsure whether you are awake or drifting in the last remnants of a dream, your breath shallow, your limbs trembling with weakness, your mind slow to gather itself. The room around you feels both familiar and distant. The rough wooden beams overhead, the uneven floor beneath the thin layer of straw, the faint glow of embers in the hearth, the air thick with the lingering smoke of last night's fire. And you sense the presence of the woman who has cared for you, her quiet movements steady, her posture tense with worry, her eyes fixed on you with a mixture of relief and caution, as though she is afraid that if she looks away, you might slip back into the darkness that nearly claimed you. You try to speak, but your throat is dry, your voice thin, and she lifts a small wooden cup to your lips, the water cool and slightly earthy, tasting of stone and soil, and you drink slowly, feeling the liquid soothe your throat, feeling your body respond with a faint spark of strength. And you think of modern water, clean and filtered, flowing effortlessly from taps, and the contrast feels immense, as though you have stepped into a world where every sip is a negotiation with the land itself. When you attempt to sit up, your body protests, your muscles trembling, your breath catching in your chest, and the woman steadies you with a firm hand, guiding you slowly, carefully, as though you are a child learning to move again, and you feel the roughness of the wool blanket against your skin, the uneven texture of the wooden plank beneath you, the cold air brushing against your face, and you realize how fragile you are, how close you came to disappearing, how thin the line is between life and death in this world. She offers you a small bowl of warm broth, its aroma mild, its texture thin, and you drink it slowly, feeling the warmth spread through your body, feeling your stomach tighten with hunger and relief. and you realize how dependent you are on the villagers, how your survival now rests in their hands, in their willingness to care for you, despite the risk, despite the uncertainty, despite the fear that illness brings outside. The village is beginning its morning rhythm. The faint sounds drifting through the wooden walls, the clatter of wooden tools, the bleating of goats, the low murmur of voices speaking in their thick, familiar accents, and you sense that something is different, that the villagers are speaking more quietly than usual, their tones subdued, their movements slower, as though the events of the previous day have cast a shadow over the community, a reminder of how fragile life is, how quickly illness can spread, how easily death can enter a home. When you finally step outside, supported by the woman's steady hand, the cold air hits you with a sharpness that steals your breath for a moment. The sky a pale gray, the ground damp from the night's moisture, the scent of earth and smoke rising gently, and you breathe deeply, feeling the world settle around you once more, feeling the weight of your own body, the weakness in your legs, the trembling in your arms, and you understand that recovery will be slow, that healing here is not aided by medicine, but by rest, warmth, and the quiet hope that the fever will not return. The villagers watch you from a distance, their expressions unreadable, their eyes sharp with curiosity and caution, and you sense that your brush with death has changed their perception of you, that you are no longer simply an outsider, but something more complicated, someone who has crossed a threshold they understand all too well, someone who has returned from the edge, someone who has survived what many do not. You walk slowly through the village, your steps unsteady, your breath shallow, and you observe the daily life unfolding around you. The men repairing tools, their hands rough and reddened by labor, their movements steady and practiced. The women tending to fires, stirring pots of thin stew, their faces lined with fatigue, their clothing patched and worn, the children gathering kindling, their small hands quick and nimble, their laughter subdued, as though they too feel the weight of the previous day. You think of modern life, of the distance between illness and death, of the safety provided by medicine, of the comfort of knowing that help is always available, and the contrast feels stark, as though you have stepped into a world where every breath is a gift, where every day is a negotiation with fate, where survival is never guaranteed, and you feel a quiet ache in your chest, the awareness that you are far from everything you once knew, far from the safety nets that once protected you, far from the world where illness was an inconvenience rather than a threat. As the morning deepens, you feel your strength fading, your body reminding you that recovery is slow, that healing here is not aided by medicine, but by rest, warmth, and the quiet hope that the fever will not return. And you sit near the central fire, feeling its warmth on your hands, listening to the villagers speak softly, their voices blending with the crackle of the flames, their words carrying a rhythm that feels ancient. Steady and grounded, you sense a shift in their behavior, a subtle softening, a quiet acceptance, as though your survival has earned you a small measure of belonging, a fragile thread of connection that may grow stronger with time, and you feel a faint warmth in your chest, not from the fire, but from the awareness that you are no longer entirely alone, that the villagers, despite their caution, have begun to see you not as a threat, but as a person, a fragile being struggling to survive in a world that demands everything. As the afternoon stretches on, you attempt to help with small tasks, carrying a few pieces of firewood, sweeping the ground near the house. But each movement sends a wave of weakness through your body, and the villagers gently guide you back to the fire, their gestures firm, but not unkind, their eyes carrying the quiet understanding of people who have seen illness many times, who know that recovery cannot be rushed, who know that the body must be allowed to heal at its own pace. You watch them work, their bodies moving with practiced efficiency, their faces calm despite the hardship, and you feel a deep respect for them, for the way they endure, for the way they accept suffering as a natural part of life, for the way they continue despite the constant presence of illness, hunger, and uncertainty. And you think of modern society, of the distance between labor and survival, of the comfort of machines and technology, of the ease of living without fear of hunger or cold. And the contrast feels immense as evening settles over the village, the sky darkening, the air growing colder. The villagers gather near the central fire, their faces illuminated by the flickering light, their voices low, their expressions tired but calm. And you sit among them, feeling the warmth of the fire on your hands, the cold air on your back, the hunger still lingering in your stomach. And you listen to their conversations, the rhythm of their speech soothing. Despite your inability to understand, you observe the way they interact, the way they share small pieces of food, the way they laugh quietly, the way they comfort a child who has scraped a knee. And you feel a quiet ache in your chest, the awareness that despite the hardship, despite the hunger and the cold, there is a sense of community here, a sense of belonging that you do not yet share, but may one day find. As night settles fully over the village, you return to the small wooden house, your body tired, your mind heavy with the weight of the day, and you lie down on the rough wooden surface once more, the straw shifting beneath you, the wool blanket heavy and scratchy. And you close your eyes, breathing slowly, feeling the quiet rhythm of life returning to your body. You understand, with a deep, quiet clarity, that death will always be close in this world, that illness will always be a threat, that misunderstanding and cultural differences will always carry risk. Yet you also understand that you have survived another day, that you have been given another chance. That life continues, fragile and uncertain, but still yours to live. And as sleep begins to pull you gently downward, you feel a faint spark of determination, a quiet resolve to keep moving, to keep learning, to keep enduring. For each day you remain alive in this world is a small victory, a quiet defiance against the darkness that waits at the edges of life. The sixth day begins with a faint tremor in your hands, a lingering weakness that reminds you of the fever that nearly pulled you away only 2 days before. And when you open your eyes, the morning light is soft and pale, drifting gently through the cracks in the wooden walls, carrying with it the familiar scent of smoke, damp wool, and the faint earthy bitterness of the straw beneath you. And you lie still for a long moment, breathing slowly, feeling the weight of your own body, the heaviness in your limbs, the quiet ache in your chest. And you understand that recovery in this world is not a matter of hours or even days, but a slow, uncertain process shaped by rest, warmth, and the fragile balance of the body itself. You sit up carefully, the wool blanket sliding from your shoulders, thick old air brushing against your skin with a sharpness that makes you shiver. And you feel the roughness of the wooden plank beneath you, the uneven texture grounding you in the present moment, reminding you that comfort is a luxury that does not exist here, that every surface is hard, every blanket coarse, every breath tinged with smoke. And you think of the softness of your old bed, the warmth of central heating, the ease of waking without pain, and the memory feels distant, almost dreamlike, as though it belongs to another life entirely. The woman who has cared for you enters quietly, her movements slow but steady, her face lined with fatigue, her hands reddened by the cold, and she offers you a small bowl of warm broth. Its aroma mild, its texture thin, and you drink it slowly, feeling the warmth spread through your body, feeling your stomach tighten with hunger and relief. And you sense that she is watching you closely, studying your movements, your breathing, your strength, as though she's measuring your chances of surviving the day. When you step outside, supported by the wooden frame of the doorway, thick old morning air hits you with a sharpness that steals your breath for armament. The sky a pale gray, the ground damp from the night's moisture, Peasant of earth and smoke rising gently, and you breathe deeply, feeling the world settle around you once more, feeling the weight of your own body, the weakness in your legs, the trembling in your arms, and you understand that you must move slowly, that your body is still fragile, that the fever has left you vulnerable. The villagers watch you from a distance, their expressions cautious, their eyes sharp with curiosity and concern, and you sense that your brush with illness has changed their perception of you, that you are no longer simply an outsider, but someone who has been touched by the same dangers that shape their lives, someone who has felt the fragility of the body, someone who has survived what many do not, and their glances carry a quiet respect mixed with allegering uncertainty. As you walk slowly through the village, your steps unsteady, your breath shallow, you notice the small details that you were too overwhelmed to see before. The way the wooden houses lean slightly from years of weather, the way thatched roofs sag in places, the way the ground is uneven and muddy, the way the smoke from the hearths clings to the air, creating a faint haze that settles over everything. And you realize how harsh this environment is, how unforgiving, how easily a misstep could lead to injury, how easily illness could spread, how quickly a small accident could become something far more serious. A group of villagers gather near the central fire, their voices low, their expressions serious, and as you approach they fall silent for a moment, studying you with a mixture of curiosity and caution. And then one of the older men gestures for you to sit, his face lined with age, his hands thick with calluses, his eyes carrying the quiet wisdom of someone who has lived through many winters, many illnesses, many losses, and you sit beside him, feeling the warmth of the fire on your hands, the cold air on your back, the weight off your attention settling around you. He begins to speak, his voice low and steady, his accent thick, his words shaped by a rhythm that feels ancient. And though you cannot understand every word, you understand enough. He is telling you about the dangers of this world, the risks that shape their daily lives, the things that must be avoided, the things that must be respected, the things that can take a life without running. And you listen carefully, your mind absorbing each detail, each warning, each quiet truth. He speaks of illness, of fevers that come without reason, of coughs that linger for weeks, of wounds that refuse to heal, of infections that spread beneath the skin, of the way the body can weaken suddenly, the way strength can fade without explanation. And you think of modern medicine, of antibiotics and sterile tools, of hospitals and trained doctors, and the contrast feels immense, as though you have stepped into a world where the body is always on the edge of danger, where survival depends on luck as much as strength. He speaks of accidents, of slips on wet ground, of falls from ladders, of tools that break unexpectedly, of fires that spread too quickly, of animals that kick or bite, of the way a single misstep can change everything. And you think of modern safety standards, of protective gear, of emergency services, of countless systems designed to prevent harm, and you feel a quiet ache in your chest. The awareness that here, every action carries risk. Every task demands caution. Every moment requires awareness. He speaks of hunger, of winters when food runs low, of harvests ruined by rain or frost, of livestock lost to illness, of the way the body weakens when the stomach is empty, of the way hunger can shape the mind, the mood, the decisions of a community. And you think of modern supermarkets, of shelves filled with food, of the ease of eating whenever hunger strikes, and the contrast feels almost cruel, as though you have been stripped of every comfort you once took for granted. He speaks of childbirth, of the dangers faced by women, of the risks that accompany every birth, of the way life and death walk side by side in those moments. And you think of modern hospitals, of trained professionals, austral equipment, and you feel a quiet heaviness settle into your thoughts. The awareness that here, even the beginning of life is shadowed by danger. He speaks of misunderstandings, of cultural expectations, of the unspoken rules that shape their interactions, of the gestures that must be voided, of the words that carry hidden meanings, of the ways an outsider can offend without realizing it. And you think of your own confusion, your own mistakes, your own struggle to understand their world, and you feel a quiet fear settle into your chest. The awareness that survival here is not only physical but social, that one wrong gesture could place you in danger. As the day unfolds, you walk slowly through the village, your body still awake, your mind heavy with the weight of everything you have learned. And you observe the villagers with new eyes, noticing the way they move, the way they speak, the way they work, the way they navigate the constant presence of danger with quiet resilience. And you feel a deep respect for them, for the way they endure, for the way they accept hardship as a natural part of life, for the way they continue despite the constant presence of illness, hunger, and uncertainty. You help with small tasks, carrying a few pieces of firewood, sweeping the ground near the house. But each movement sends a wave of weakness through your body, and the villagers gently guide you back to the fire, their gestures firm but not unkind, their eyes carrying the quiet understanding of people who have seen illness many times, who know that recovery cannot be rushed, who know that the body must be allowed to heal at its own pace. As evening settles over the village, the sky darkening, the air growing colder, the villagers gather near the central fire, their faces illuminated by flickering light, their voices low, their expressions tired but calm. And you sit among them, feeling the warmth of the fire on your hands, the cold air on your back, the hunger still lingering in your stomach. And you listen to their conversations, the rhythm of their speech soothing despite your inability to understand. You observe the way they interact, the way they share small pieces of food, the way they laugh quietly, the way they comfort a child who has scraped a knee. And you feel a quiet ache in your chest, the awareness that despite the hardship, despite the hunger and the cold, there is a sense of community here, a sense of belonging that you do not yet share, but may one day find. As night settles fully over the village, you return to the small wooden house, your body tired, your mind heavy with the weight of the day, and you lie down on the rough wooden surface once more, the straw shifting beneath you, the wool blanket heavy and scratchy, and you close your eyes, breathing slowly, feeling the quiet rhythm of life returning to your body. You understand, with a deep, quiet clarity, that danger will always be close in this world, that illness will always be a threat, that misunderstanding and cultural differences will always carry risk. Yet you also understand that you have survived another day, that you have been given an authorchance, that life continues, fragile and uncertain, but still yours to live, and as sleep begins to pull you gently downward, you feel a faint spark of determination, a quiet resolve to keep moving, to keep learning, to keep enduring. For each day you remain alive in this world is a small victory, a quiet defiance against the darkness that waits at the edges of life. The seventh day begins with a stillness so deep that it feels almost sacred, a stillness that settles over your body like a soft veil, and when you open your eyes, the morning light is gentle and pale, drifting through the cracks in the wooden walls in thin, wavering beams, carrying with it the scent of smoke, damp straw, and the faint sweetness of the cold air outside. And you lie there for a long moment, breathing slowly, feeling the quiet rhythm of your own heartbeat, feeling the weight of the wool blanket against your skin, feeling the roughness of the wooden plank beneath you. And you realize that something inside you has shifted, something subtle but unmistakable. You sit up slowly, your movements careful, your breath steady, and you feel the lingering weakness in your limbs, the faint ache in your muscles, the quiet reminder of the fever that nearly pulled you away. Yet beneath the weakness, there is a new steadiness, a new sense of grounding, as though your body has begun to accept this world, to adapt to its demands, to find its place within its rhythm. And you think of the world you left behind, the world of soft beds and warm showers, of electric lights and clean water, of endless choices and constant comfort. And the memory feels distant, softened by time and hardship, as though it belongs to someone else. The woman who has cared for you enters quietly, her movements slow but steady, her face lined with fatigue but softened by relief. And she offers you a small bowl of warm porridge. Its aroma mild, its texture coarse, and you eat slowly, savoring each bite, feeling the warmth spread through your body, feeling your stomach settle. And you sense that she is watching you closely, studying your strength, your posture, your breathing, as though she is measuring your readiness to return to the world outside. When you step outside, the cold morning air brushes against your skin with a sharpness that wakes your senses. The sky a pale blue streaked with thin clouds, the ground damp from the night's frost, the scent of earth and smoke rising gently. And you breathe deeply, feeling the world settle around you, feeling the weight of your own body, feeling the quiet hum of life in the village. And you realize that you are no longer simply surviving, no longer simply enduring, but beginning to live within this world, beginning to understand its rhythms, its dangers, its quiet beauty. The villagers move through their morning tasks with steady purpose, their movements practiced, their faces calm. And as you walk among them, you sense a subtle shift in their glances, a quiet acceptance, a recognition that you have endured what many do not, that you have faced illness and weakness and fear. And yet you remain, breathing, walking, learning. And their eyes carry a warmth that was not there before, a small but meaningful sign that you are no longer entirely an outsider. You help with small tasks, carrying firewood, sweeping the ground near the central fire, gathering kindling from the edge of the forest. And though your body still trembles with weakness, you feel a quiet satisfaction in the work, a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging. And as you move through the village, you notice the small details that you once overlooked, the way the smoke curls from the chimneys in thin, wavering trails, the way the frost clings to the edges of the wooden beams, the way the villagers speak to one another with a mixture of caution and warmth, their voices shaped by the weight of survival and the comfort of familiarity. As the morning deepens, you find yourself drawn to the edge of the village, where the fields stretch out in uneven patches of brown and green, the soil dark and damp, the air heavy with the scent of earth. And you stand there for a long moment, breathing slowly, feeling the cold wind brush against your face, feeling the quiet hum of life beneath the surface of the land. And your thoughts drift back to the world you left behind, the world of paved roads and streetlights, of cars and screens, of schedules and noise. And the contrast feels immense, almost overwhelming, as though you have stepped from one reality into another without warning. You think of the mornings you once knew, the ease of waking in a warm bed, the comfort of hot water, the convenience of breakfast prepared in minutes, the hum of electricity, the glow of screens, the endless stream of information and noise. And you realize how far you have come, how much you have lost, how much you have gained, how much you have changed. And the memory of your old life feels both comforting and distant, a soft echo that lingers at the edges of your thoughts. As you stand there, lost in reflection, one of the older villagers approaches you, his posture steady, his face lined with age, his eyes carrying the quiet wisdom of someone who has lived through many winters, many hardships, many losses, and he gestures for you to walk with him. his voice low and steady, his accent thick. And though you cannot understand every word, you understand enough. He is offering you knowledge, guidance, a glimpse into the deeper truths of this world. He leads you along a narrow path that winds through the fields, the ground uneven beneath your feet, the air cold and crisp, and he speaks as you walk. His words slow and deliberate, his tone carrying the weight of experience. And though you cannot grasp every detail, you understand the essence of what he is saying. He is telling you about the fragility of life in this world, the constant presence of danger, the quiet resilience required to survive, the importance of community, the necessity of caution, the value of strength. He speaks of winters that stretch on for months, of food stores that run low, of illnesses that sweep through the village, of accidents that change lives, of storms that tear roofs from houses, of harvests that fail, of the quiet fear that settles over the community during the darkest days. And you think of modern life, of heating systems and grocery stores, of medicine and emergency services, of the countless systems designed to protect and support, and the contrast feels immense, as though you have stepped into a world where every breath is a negotiation with fate. He speaks of the importance of understanding the land, of reading the weather, of knowing when to plant and when to harvest, of recognizing the signs of illness, of respecting the unspoken rules of the community, of listening more than speaking, of observing more than acting. And you realize how much you still have to learn, how much you still do not understand, how easily a mistake could place you in danger. As the afternoon stretches on, you return to the village, your mind heavy with the weight of everything you have learned, your body tired but steady, and you sit near the central fire, feeling its warmth on your hands, listening to the villagers speak softly, their voices blending with the crackle of the flames, and you feel a quiet sense of belonging, a fragile but growing connection to the people around you. You think of your old life, of the noise and the speed, of the constant rush, of the endless distractions, of the comfort that dulled your senses. And you realize how different you are now, how much more aware you have become, how much more present, how much more connected to the rhythm of your own body, to the rhythm of the land, to the rhythm of the people around you. And the realization settles into your chest like a quiet truth. As evening settles over the village, the sky darkening, the air growing colder, the villagers gather near the fire, their faces illuminated by the flickering light, their voices low, their expressions tired but calm. And you sit among them, feeling the warmth of the fire on your hands, the cold air on your back, the hunger still lingering in your stomach. And you listen to their conversations, the rhythm of their speech soothing despite your inability to understand. You observe the way they interact, the way they share small pieces of food, the way they laugh quietly, the way they comfort one another, the way they move with a quiet resilience shaped by hardship and necessity. And you feel a quiet ache in your chest, the awareness that despite the challenges, despite the dangers, despite the constant presence of uncertainty, there is a beauty in their simplicity, a strength in their unity, a warmth in their community. As night settles fully over the village, you return to the small wooden house, your body tired, your mind heavy with the weight of the day, and you lie down on the rough wooden surface once more, the straw shifting beneath you, the wool blanket heavy and scratchy, and you close your eyes, breathing slowly, feeling the quiet rhythm of life settling into your body. You understand, with a deep, quiet clarity, that your old life is gone, that the world you once knew exists only in memory, that the comforts you once took for granted are no longer yours. Yet you also understand that you have found something new, something fragile but real, something shaped by hardship and resilience, something grounded in the rhythm of the land and the warmth of the community. And as sleep begins to pull you gently downward, you feel a faint spark of acceptance, a quiet resolve to keep moving, to keep learning, to keep enduring. For each day you remain alive in this world is a small victory, a quiet affirmation that you belong, not to the world you left behind, but to the world you now inhabit. The final day begins with a stillness unlike any you have felt before, a stillness that settles over the village like a soft blanket of frost, quiet and unmoving. And when you open your eyes, you sense immediately that something has shifted, something subtle but unmistakable, as though the world around you is holding its breath, waiting for a moment that has not yet arrived, and you sit up slowly, feeling the familiar roughness of the wool blanket against your skin, the uneven wooden plank beneath you, the faint scent of smoke lingering in the air. And you breathe deeply, letting the cold morning air fill your lungs, letting the quiet settle into your bones. You rise to your feet, your movements steady now, your strength returned, your body no longer trembling with weakness. And when you step outside, the village greets you with a soft, muted light, the sky pale and calm, the ground damp with morning dew, the air carrying the scent of earth and wood smoke. And you walk slowly through the familiar paths, feeling the weight of each step, feeling the quiet hum of life around you, feeling the gentle pull of something you cannot yet name. The villagers move through their morning tasks with the same steady rhythm you have come to know, their faces calm, their movements practiced, their voices low and warm, and as you pass them, they offer small nods, quiet glances, subtle signs of acceptance. And you feel a warmth in your chest, a fragile but real sense of belonging, a connection shaped by hardship and shared struggle. And you realize how deeply this place has settled into you, how much it has changed you, how much it has taught you. You walk toward the edge of the village, where the fields stretch out in uneven patches of brown and green, the soil dark and rich, the air cool and crisp. And you stand there for a long moment, breathing slowly, letting your thoughts drift back to the world you left behind, the world of warm beds and bright lights, of clean water and endless choices, of noise and speed and comfort. And the contrast feels immense, almost overwhelming. As though you have lived two lives in the span of a single week, you think of the mornings you once knew, the ease of waking without pain, the comfort of hot water, the convenience of food prepared in minutes, the hum of electricity, the glow of screens, the constant rush of modern life, and you realize how distant it feels now, how soft by time and hardship, how small and fragile those memories seem compared to the weight of the days you have lived here. You think of the people you have met, the woman who cared for you, the villagers who watched you with caution and then with quiet acceptance, the old man who taught you about the dangers of this world, the children who gathered kindling with quick, nimble hands, and you feel a quiet ache in your chest, the awareness that you have grown to care for them, that you have found something here that you did not expect, something simple and grounding and real. As you stand there, lost in thought, a faint warmth begins to gather around you, subtle at first, like the soft glow of embers beneath ash, and then slowly growing brighter, warmer, more insistent. And you look down to see the air, shimmering gently around your hands, the light shifting like ripples on water, and you feel a quiet pull, gentle but steady, as though the world itself is reaching for you, calling you back to where you came from. You take a slow breath, your heart steady, your mind calm, and you understand, without fear or confusion, that your time here is ending, that the world you left behind is calling you home, that the path you walked in this village, the hardships you endured, the lessons you learned, have shaped you in ways you will carry forever. And you close your eyes, letting the warmth surround you, letting the light gather beneath your skin, letting the quiet pull guide you. The sounds of the village fade slowly, gently, like a distant echo carried away by wind, the scent of smoke and earth dissolving into something softer. Lighter, the cold air warming around you, the ground beneath your feet shifting, and you feel yourself drifting. Not falling, not rising, simply drifting, as though carried by a soft current, as though the world is folding itself around you, guiding you from one life to another. When you open your eyes again, the world is bright and familiar, the air warm and clean, the ground smooth beneath your feet, and you stand in the quiet stillness of your own time, your own world, the hum of electricity faint in the distance, the softness of modern life settling around you like a forgotten memory returning to its place. And you breathe deeply, feeling the weight of everything you have lived, everything you have learned, everything you have become. You look down at your hands, steady and warm, no longer trembling with weakness, no longer stained with earth and smoke, and you feel a quiet gratitude settle into your chest, a gentle awareness of how fragile life is, how precious comfort can be, how easily the world can shift beneath your feet. And you understand, with a deep, quiet clarity, that you will never see your own life the same way again. You close your eyes once more, letting the calm settle into your thoughts, letting the quiet fill your mind, letting the softness of the moment wrap around you like a warm blanket. And you breathe slowly, deeply, peacefully, knowing that the journey has ended, that the story has come full circle, that you have returned home changed, grounded, and awake in a way you were not before. And as the final moments of this story drift gently into silence, I wish you a peaceful night, a soft rest, and dreams that carry you gently into sleep. May your mind be calm, may your breath be steady, and may the quiet of this ending follow you into the night. Good night, and sleep well.